So, comrade, I heard that you want to invest in North Korea. Bold choice, my friend. Let's do some business in the most sanctioned, secretive country on earth. Here you are, flirting with the Hermit Kimdom's latent market like it's a mysterious stranger in a pub. Investing in North Korea is the ultimate frontier market adventure, a thrilling opportunity as well as an investor's nightmare. For starters, North Korea is a land of paradoxes. It's impoverished yet boasts untapped resources. It's isolated yet borders economic powerhouses, especially China and the fake Korea down the south. Its people have little money to spend, but they're highly educated since they are nearly all literate and have plenty of engineers. The country has been called one of the last virgin markets, a place so closed off that any opening could mean massive profits for early birds. Think about it. Cheap labor that doesn't complain, no competition from other foreign businesses, as there basically aren't any, and a government desperate for foreign currency. Sounds like a capitalist's wildest and wettest dream, doesn't it? This guide will walk you through how to invest in North Korea with some cautionary case studies. We'll cover the tempting opportunities that allure sane people to do insane things, the creative pathways entrepreneurs have used to get a foothold in this reclusive market, the industries and schemes that might actually make money, and the multitude of risks and horror stories that make veteran investors say, thanks, but no thanks. Before the start of the show, shout out to our channel members who are sponsoring our production and footing our electricity bills. There ain't no Kimdom without you. Thank you. Now, buckle up, because doing business in North Korea is like taking a roller coaster in the dark. If you have a taste for adventure, this is the ultimate guide for you. Let's dive into the weird world of North Korean investing, where fortune favors the bold and sometimes eats them alive.
Welcome to Korea, the land of morning come.
Every great idea starts with a temptation and some strategic planning. What makes an investor even consider North Korea, given all the red flags and international sanctions? First, DPRK is a resource-abundant country, literally sitting on a mountain of minerals. Coal, iron ore, gold, rare earth metals, you name it. Some estimates say the mineral wealth underground is worth trillions. Imagine being the first to tap into that. It's the classic gold rush scenario, except the gold is guarded by a guy with a nuclear button. Minor detail. Second, the labor market is great. Labor doesn't get much cheaper and quieter than in North Korea. The average local wage in a joint venture factory can be as low as $100 per month. No missing zero. Workers in Pyongyang or Razon earn in a month what a Western worker might make in a day. They're highly disciplined, strike-free, and won't unionize or complain about long hours, as they have been trained under decades of authoritarian rule. No pesky labor unions, no Facebook posts about toxic workplaces. Sorry, in fact, no Facebook at all. For a profit-hungry manufacturer, that's pure heaven. Third, geographic sweet spot. Location, location, location. Doing business is all about location. North Korea is smack between China and South Korea, two world-class economic powerhouses. If North Korea ever opened up, it could be the bridge of East Asia. Ports that connect to China's industrial northeast and Russia's far east, railways linking to Seoul and beyond. Logistics nerds have wet dreams about running freight through North Korea. There's also a 17 million population market, so get in early, and if the country reforms like Vietnam or China did, you'll be riding a tidal wave of growth. Fourth, great tourism potential. North Korea has beaches, mountains, and an irresistible forbidden fruit appeal to adventurous travelers. During rare diplomatic thaws, millions of Chinese tourists visited for train holidays, and curious Westerners shelled out to run the Pyongyang Marathon or ski around Mount Paektu. The country's tourism folks boast about unspoiled landscapes and historical sites, though the statues of Kim Il-sung flood most sites. But hey, they have some pretty mountains too. If the regime ever fully opened the doors, being the first to build hotels, resorts, or theme parks, naming it something like Kim Jong-un World, could make you a big fortune. It's the next exotic destination, like Cuba plus Myanmar times 10. Of course, right now, tourism is tightly controlled, but the potential keeps investor imaginations running. Fifth, early bird advantages. In business, being first in a virgin market is huge. There are no competitors because hardly anyone is doing business there, except some Chinese corporations fooled into the game. It's the ultimate blue ocean, albeit one infested with metaphorical sharks. If you plant your flag now, you can be the Coca-Cola of North Korea when everyone else rushes in later. Speaking of Coca-Cola, North Korea is one of the few places on Earth without McDonald's or Coke officially. So if you've ever fancied being the first franchisee of KFC in Pyongyang or opening the inaugural Starbucks across from Kim Il-sung Square, that is your ultimate chance, in theory. Finally, the current state policy is great. North Korea wants your money and is desperate for any kind of investment. The state has, over the years, quietly solicited foreign investment to prop up its economy. They've set up special economic zones, passed laws offering tax breaks or profit repatriation. When Kim Jong-un took power, he initially talked about economic growth and even flirted with market reforms. Every so often, Pyongyang dangles the carrot of, "We're ready for business." Remember the Kim-Trump bromance in Singapore? That 2018 summit further fueled speculation that North Korea could open up. At those moments, the country is pitched as an investor's bonanza awaiting development. And some folks, eyes gleaming with dollar signs, took the bait. All right, everything is tempting, isn't it? Cheap labor, untapped markets, potential high returns. North Korea checks all the boxes an adventurous investor ever wants. But as any savvy investor knows, sometimes a market remains like a virgin for a reason. Before you rush in, let's examine how one might actually go about investing here without getting burnt to a crisp.
Wherever you go in Korea, you can find the perfect welfare service facilities for tourists.
All right, so you're seduced by the potential and undeterred by the obvious hazards. How does one actually invest in North Korea? You can't exactly waltz in and start a business like you would in London or Shanghai. It requires creativity, nerve, and often a third-party workaround. So here are some of the possible paths to make money with or for the North Koreans. First, tourism. One of the safest and most accessible ways to involve yourself in North Korea is opening a travel agency. If direct investment is like jumping into a volcano, promoting curiosity trips to the Hermit Kimdom is like carefully dancing around the rim. Here's how it works and how lucrative it is. Practically speaking, you don't set up any business inside North Korea, you do it outside. Many tour agencies in Beijing, Moscow, Stockholm, and other friendly cities have niche travel agencies that specialize in organizing trips to North Korea. Think of it as investing in North Korea's tourism from the outside. You market tour packages on social media, gather adventurous clients, and partner with the state-run Korean International Travel Company, or the official tourism bureaus, who collaborate with you from the inside. They will handle everything in the country, from arranging ever-attentive yet sometimes spying guides and the bus for sightseeing. You just need to handle the foreigners willing to pay to see the world's most famous dictatorship up close. It's not heavy industry and no heavy upfront investment, but it is a way to earn money that solely depends on North Korea. Why is this a thing? Well, there's a steady trickle of tourists even in the worst times of geopolitics. For example, in the 2010s, Chinese tourists used to flood Pyongyang before COVID slammed the door. Western tourist numbers were smaller, a few thousand at peak, but the curiosity is always there. In the dizzying 2018, roughly 200,000 foreign tourists visited the Kimdom and submitted their foreign currency to our supreme leader. In this context, tour agencies charge a nice markup for the privilege of guided isolation. A 5-day tour can cost anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 per person. If you can wrangle 10 to 20 tourists a month, you're making decent cash by just taking the commission fee. And you don't have to build anything or wire the money into the Kimdom. Just coordinate and maybe escort the tours. What a risk-free business plan! Besides, running a North Korea tour agency gives you endless material for stories. Your marketing can be exotic and dangerously attractive. Visit North Korea, see vintage Soviet architecture, experience electricity blackouts as a real adventure, and enjoy digital detox away from YouTube. Or you may advertise Adrenaline Tour. Watch the best military parade live with guaranteed goosebumps. As an investor, you're basically monetizing the world's curiosity about the Kim regime. And ironically, the regime welcomes this because tourism brings in foreign cash. You know, all those euros and yuan spent go straight into the state coffers. They might even treat you better than other investors, since you're practically financing the supreme leader's next Maybach. Nonetheless, even tourism has risks. One major DPRK tour agency had a motto of "Destinations your mother would rather you stay away from." And your mum's worries are legit. In 2017, after the tragic Otto Warmbier incident, which an American college student was detained for a minor infraction and later died, the US banned its citizens from visiting. Oops, there went a chunk of the market. If you run tours, you must enforce strict rules on your customers. No wandering off, no snarky comments about Kim statues, no stealing propaganda posters, no matter how cool they'd look on your dorm wall. You must be responsible for their behavior, or you might face some real consequences too. The moment one of your clients does something that offends the regime, your business, and perhaps your life, could be in jeopardy. So, control your client and stop them from filming those stupid TikTok challenges. Or, get you ready for 15 years of hard labor. Warnings aside, there are actually successful tour companies that have been in the game for years. Brits, Russians, Canadians, Chinese, etc. have carved out this niche. They've built relationships with the North Korean travel authorities, learned the art of diplomatic schmoozing, and kept a steady flow of curious travelers coming. Some even expanded into specialty tours, architecture tours for fans of socialist monuments, marathon tours, and even aviation geeks tours, since North Korea's national airline, Air Koryo, is a living museum of old Soviet planes. One could say these tour operators indirectly invest in North Korea by building up the country's tourism infrastructure demand. And if someday tourism really opens up big time, these pioneers could scale up massively. In short, opening a DPRK-focused tourist agency is a bit like opening a haunted house attraction. It's creepy and fascinating. Then, you profit from people's morbid curiosity. It's one path that many individuals have taken to engage economically with North Korea without having to actually own property or factories there. Just remember to always keep the bus rolling and the camera-toting tourists in line, or you might get a very angry call from Pyongyang. For those looking to go beyond tour groups and set up an actual business inside the North Korean territory, the typical route is through joint ventures in special economic zones. North Korea has tried to create pockets of capitalism in some rigidly controlled, semi-market areas to lure foreign capital. Here's how that works. The very concept of special economic zones is that in some designated areas, usually border towns or port cities, North Korea offers slightly relaxed rules for foreign businesses. Think of them as little free market-ish bubbles in a socialist paradise. The most notable zones include Rason in the northeast, steps from China and Russia, Kaesong in the south, which is jointly run with South Korea when it operated, and Sinuiju in the northwest, bordering the Chinese town Dandong. And most recently, we have the Wonsan-Kalma Coastal Tourist Zone, which we had our first episode about. On paper, these zones come with incentives, including tax holidays, the ability to lease land, hire labor directly, and sometimes even use foreign currency, as well as access to the real internet. But just on paper. First, you very likely need to find a local partner. North Korean law generally requires a local partner, usually a state socialist entity, for any business. You can't 100% own a North Korean factory as a foreigner. Maybe you own 49%, and some ministry or army unit owns the other 51%. They might contribute land or facilities. You contribute cash and equipment. In a special economic zone, the arrangements are slightly more flexible. Like, some have allowed majority foreign ownership for certain projects. Essentially, investing means cozying up to a North Korean institution. This could be a trade ministry, a state-owned company, or even the military. Yes, that's right. You might end up as business partners with generals in charge of anything from mining to hotels. It's the ultimate odd couple scenario. You, a profit-driven capitalist, and them, socialist bureaucrats who care about loyalty and surveillance above all. What could go wrong? Let's examine one famous example. Sinuiju is a city right on the Chinese border, across the river from the Chinese city Dandong. In 2002, North Korea announced Sinuiju would become a special administrative region, basically the DPRK version of Hong Kong, with its own regulations and currency to attract investors. They even appointed a foreign businessman, a flashy Chinese-Dutch entrepreneur named Yang Bin, as the special governor. This was mind-blowing news in the investor community at the time, sounding like North Korea was genuinely opening a door. Investors perked up. And then, China arrested the appointed governor for tax evasion, and the whole plan imploded within weeks. Sinuiju never became the next Macau or Shenzhen. Instead, it remains a typical border trade town with some smuggling and small-time Chinese traders. So, if you want to do something big, plan at your own risk. Then we have the Raisin SEZ. Established in the 1990s, it has seen a rotating cast of investors. It's remote, up by the Russian border, but has ice-free ports. The Chinese have used Raisin's ports to ship coal and seafood. The Russians built a railway there and even got rights to use the port for 50 years. Some Chinese businesses set up manufacturing there. For instance, there are Chinese garment factories where North Korean seamstresses stitch cheap clothing for export. Why? Because, as mentioned, labor is dirt cheap, and Raisin offered an official way to circumvent some trade barriers and any labor law. At times, Raisin was a bustling little enclave, Chinese-run restaurants, a foreigner-only hotel, even a casino operated by a Hong Kong company. If you were an investor with a strong stomach, Raisin was a place you could theoretically make deals without the full madness of Pyongyang. A Chinese entrepreneur interviewed about his Raisin garment factory in 2019 said he invested over $1.5 million to build and equip it and employed hundreds of North Korean workers at around $100 per month each. He even admitted to bribing local officials hefty sums to get the venture going. Despite sanctions that officially banned textile exports, he managed to truck the finished clothes back to China quietly. This kind of secretly dirty arrangement is how business gets done. Then we have a very special area. Kaesong Industrial Complex was a unique economic zone jointly run by North and South Korea, opened in 2004. It's worth mentioning because it showcased both the allure and the risks in one tidy package. Over 120 South Korean companies set up factories across the border in Kaesong, hiring 50,000 North Korean workers. South Korea got ultra-cheap labor and a foothold in the north. North Korea got cash. On average, the wage was about $75 a month per worker, which was paid to the North Korean government, and the workers could only receive a fraction. For several years, it produced everything from clothes to circuit boards and was hailed as a model of future cooperation that generated a huge sum of profits for those South Korean firms. Then, in 2016, after some nuclear shenanigans by Pyongyang, the South Korean government decided to shut it down as a protest. Overnight, all those companies had to abandon their factories, machinery, materials, poof, gone. North Korea, angry at the shutdown, eventually seized the facilities. Investors lost access to their assets, workers lost jobs, and the zone became a ghost town. It's the classic here today, gone tomorrow risk of investing in North Korea, especially when geopolitics intervenes. If you weren't convinced this is a wild ride, ask those CEOs how their blood pressure was doing.
The South Korean government plans to offer a package of support measures to compensate local firms affected by the shutdown of the Kaesong Industrial Complex in February. A government official revealed that an announcement could be made as early as this week and are expected to cover losses for liquid assets such as finished products and raw materials worth up to $80 million. The
Kaesong saga is long gone. In recent years, Kim Jong-un designated dozens of smaller economic development zones, trying to entice specific investments, such as a tourist zone in the mountains and an agriculture zone in the south. One notable project is the Wonsan-Kalma Coastal Tourist Zone, basically a giant beach resort complex on the east coast that Kim has been promoting. They built a shiny new airport there, paved promenades, and even boasted about hotels with 20,000 rooms under construction. The plan was to attract foreign investors to finish and run it, and bring in swarms of foreign tourists to lounge on North Korean beaches. If you have a weird fantasy of running a beachside resort under constant surveillance and occasional missile flyovers, Wonsan is calling your name. As of now, however, no significant foreign investor has actually put money into these newer zones. The North Koreans ended up inaugurating Wonsan Resort themselves in a propaganda show, but it's largely empty, waiting for the promised investors and tourists. Still, one can imagine, if sanctions eased, Maybe some daring investor might take up those empty hotel rooms and try to turn a profit. Totally possible. So, suppose you are undeterred and want to try a joint venture. The path might be: find an intermediary who has Pyongyang connections, often a Chinese trading firm or a North Korean expat organization. They help identify a local ministry that controls the industry you're interested in. You'd likely need to provide the capital and equipment up front. North Korea might provide workers, facilities, or mineral rights. A contract gets signed. Then you operate under the watch of government minders and within whatever limits they set. With luck, you start turning out products or services and earning revenue. You're allowed to keep some profit and maybe even remit some abroad in Chinese yuan or even euros, since dollars are tricky under sanctions. It's doable, people have done it, but each day you'll feel like you're walking a tightrope without a safety net. Exhilarating, yes? In summary, investing via SEZs and joint ventures is like dancing with a nuclear bomb. You have to let them lead, try not to step on toes, and be ready to dip at a moment's notice. Some have managed to pull off this dance and even make money for a while. Many others have ended up with bruised toes or worse. But hey, if fortune favors the bold, then this path is for the truly bold and truly crazy.
Under the benevolent sun rays, people are full of new hope and ambition.
Perhaps you're not really into formal joint ventures. Perhaps you prefer staying in the shadows, doing business with North Korea without being broadcasted in North Korea. There's a whole grey area of semi-investment through trade and outsourcing that has quietly persisted despite sanctions. Let's shine a light on some of those sneaky tactics. First, you might consider cross-border trades. For years, a lot of the so-called investment in North Korea has come from small-scale Chinese traders and entrepreneurs. These folks operate in the border regions, especially the bustling China-Korean border towns like Dandong and Hunchun. They don't think of themselves as investors, more like merchant adventurers. A typical example: a Chinese merchant strikes a deal with a North Korean factory manager to produce goods cheaply. You don't build the plant, but give outsourcing your orders with a quota and raw materials. The Chinese side suppliers send raw materials like textiles and leather by trucking them over the border. The North Korean factory manufactures, say, jackets, shoes, wigs, or even electronics components in their own factories. Then, the finished goods are trucked back to China and sold onwards, often labeled as "made in China" and quietly exported elsewhere. This way, the Chinese trader benefits from North Korean labor without ever formally owning a business in North Korea. So, you are basically a logistic company, outsourcing in the rogue state style. This obviously bumps against UN sanctions, which since 2017 technically ban North Korea from exporting textiles, seafood, coal, and other commodities. But enforcement, especially in the grey zones of the border, has been patchy. Many Chinese businesses suffered when sanctions tightened and when North Korea slammed the border shut during COVID. But as soon as there's a crack open, they resume. Why? It's all for profit. One businessman candidly admitted that despite knowing it's officially prohibited to export clothes from North Korea, they do it anyway because everyone involved gets a cut and looks the other way. North Korea gets to earn foreign currency, the Chinese merchant gets products at rock-bottom cost, and local officials often get some commission fees or straightforward bribes to let it through. It's risky, a cat and mouse with international authorities, but it can be very lucrative. If you're the kind of investor who is comfortable navigating shady waters, you could essentially bankroll such operations. It's like being a smuggler, except you're smuggling your own products out. For one example, did you know North Korea quietly became a reputable exporter of fake eyelashes and wigs? Bizarre but true. That's right. They have human hair, since real human hair trading is a thing there. And they have cheap hands to sew wigs. Chinese beauty companies found this niche. Get wigs made in North Korea for cheap, sell to global markets. Similarly, seafood like crabs and clams caught in North Korean waters would end up labeled as Chinese products in Chinese markets. These are the kind of hidden investments where foreign money fuels North Korean productive activity, but often nobody officially acknowledges it. If you invest this way, you won't get a medal for contributing to North Korea's economy, but if you hide your tracks, the profit margin is very considerable. However, if you are a real player in the global capitalist market, you should consider something big. How about IT outsourcing? Not all outsourcing is about goods. North Korea has a growing pool of software developers and IT workers. They're state-taught and quite skilled, though they mostly operate for state cyber projects. Some, infamously, are top-notch hackers. However, there have been cases of Western firms quietly hiring North Korean coders to do projects because they'll work for a fraction of the cost of, say, an Indian developer. Of course, that's illegal under most sanctions if done knowingly, but it's happened under the radar. Imagine having your mobile app coded by a team in Pyongyang whom you have never met. Kinda cool, isn't it? The point is, where there's a will, there's a way. North Koreans have even set up front companies in places like China and Malaysia to offer IT services, animation work, etc. If you didn't ask too many questions about where the work is being done, you might inadvertently be investing in North Korean talent. Oh, and how can you be certain that this video wasn't edited by someone in Pyongyang?
Recently, we have been working on the animation called Young General, which our respected Marshal gave us as a task, and other films with various themes, and also films ordered by animation companies in other countries. Because our animated films have a lot of variety, not only in themes and thinking, but also in style, people like them a lot.
Finally, if you want double safety assurance, consider this. You can invest in a Chinese or Russian company that does business with North Korea. This way, your name is nowhere near the DPRK, but you still benefit from any contracts or trade. For example, maybe you buy a stake in a Chinese logging firm in Siberia that uses North Korean guest workers, or invest in a Singaporean commodities trader that secretly deals in North Korean minerals. Well, several of them have been exposed and internationally blacklisted. At the very least, you won't be personally dragged into the international court, would you? In essence, the backdoor methods are about skirting the rules without blatantly breaking them. It's financial contortionism. Plenty of folks have made money this way, quietly fueling North Korean production while officially pretending innocence. This is a way to capitalize on North Korea's advantages without setting foot in the Pyongyang pressure cooker. Just be ready to deny everything if someone in a suit and sunglasses knocks on your door.
A court in Singapore is close to reaching a verdict in a case centred around allegations a Singapore-based firm made payments to a North Korean shipping company and other shadowy North Korean entities. According to US-based website NK News, Chinpo Shipping and its director are accused of making a payment of more than $70,000 to a shipping agent in Panama in 2013 on behalf of a...
No matter which path above you consider, tourist agency, joint venture, or backdoor trade, one strategy is universally effective and highly demanded in North Korea: bribery. Yes, we might dress it up as gift-giving or facilitation fees, but let's call a spade a spade. Money must change hands in unofficial ways to get anything done. In North Korea, almost every business deal comes with extra costs, especially paying the gatekeepers. If you open a factory, you'll be dealing with managers, party officials, security bureau folks, and very likely military units. You must keep them happy. One investor recounted that after establishing his factory, he regularly gave a couple $100 per month as a stipend to his North Korean managers and security minders, basically an ongoing bribe disguised as a gift or bonus. On holidays or special occasions, he'd present fancier gifts like instant foods, luxury liquor, smartphones, foreign goods, or straight-up cash in envelopes. This wasn't optional. It's the grease that keeps the gears turning. If you're morally opposed to bribery, congratulations on having morals, but North Korea will quickly cure you of that or spit you out. If you are not a Puritan, that's great, but you do need to budget your bribes. Some entrepreneurs factor in a corruption tax when calculating their investment. For example, say you plan to invest $1 million. You might quietly earmark 100K of that purely for greasing palms over the first couple of years. This could include one-time entrance fees to pay to a ministry official to approve your business license or permission. Then the ongoing maintenance fees, as mentioned. Look at it as your alternative to taxes and utilities. North Korea's official corporate tax might be low, but the unofficial taxes are steep. Lest you think bribery is some secret, it has been absolutely normalized in North Korea's culture. The country's economy at the grassroots runs on bribery. Citizens pay bribes to get into better schools, avoid punishments, get travel permits, etc. So of course, foreign business deals are no different, just with higher stakes. The officials you deal with might even expect presents up front as a sign of goodwill. Show up to a meeting empty-handed, and you'll be met with polite smiles and zero follow-up. Show up with a latest model iPhone or a wad of foreign cash discreetly handed under the table, and watch doors magically open for you. It's quid pro quo, Pyongyang style. So, get yourself to think of bribes as your subscription fee to the privilege of doing business in North Korea. Instead of paying for Netflix, you're paying for not getting hassled by authorities. That's right. North Korea has a pay-to-play business model far ahead of Silicon Valley. Nothing works unless you pay, period. If you enjoy RPG games, consider each bribe as leveling up your relationship with the local boss NPCs. Just keep feeding them gold, and you get plus 10 business stability. But when you run out of gold, that's game over. Also, note that beyond the economic officials, you have to keep the security apparatus mollified. Foreign investors and workers are under heavy surveillance by state security. These guys can make your life hellish if they keep harassing you, suspecting you of, say, talking to locals too freely, taking illicit photos, or just existing in a way they don't like. A well-timed gift can turn your assigned secret policeman into more of a helpful ally, or at least less of a pain. You might gift some fancy Chinese cigarettes or a sturdy lighter, or occasionally treat them to a nice dinner. And sometimes, local villagers might borrow some of your equipment under the cover of night. Having some local law enforcement friends might help. In sum, in North Korea, cash is king, and you'll need a lot of unreceipted cash to smoothly operate. It's not a path in itself, but a crucial component of any path you take. Some might find this repugnant or too risky against international business laws. But most seasoned DPRK investors just shrug and say, that's how it's done here. Factor it in, and maybe practice your best friendly smile and discreet handshake. You're basically running an obstacle course, where each obstacle is removed by some well-placed banknotes. Now that we've seen how one can attempt to invest or do business in North Korea, Next, let's talk about what exactly you might invest in, and crucially, what could possibly go wrong.
Actually doing business in North Korea is quite tricky. You have to make sure you're not violating UN sanctions. If you're from a country like the US or Australia, you have to make sure you're not violating your own country's sanctions. And so, for the vast majority of Western business people, you look at all those things and you think, well, not now.
After learning about all the different ways of investing in the Kimdom, if you are still confident and ever determined, let me help you choose the correct industry. As hinted earlier, manufacturing is a honeypot, whatever it is, garment, footwear, or other cheap consumer good. Why? Labor, labor, labor. North Korean workers don't get paid much, and they have a decent level of basic skills. In the early 2000s, before sanctions tightened, there were factories in Pyongyang making everything from shirts to knockoff handbags for foreign clients. Even today, some of that continues covertly. If sanctions disappeared tomorrow, you can bet your vintage Kim Il-sung lapel pin that textile and shoe companies from China, South Korea, and Japan would be stampeding in to set up factories. From an investor perspective, you could establish a plant with 500 workers and churn out, say, 50,000 t-shirts a month. The cost is minimal compared to the production cost in China and even Southeast Asia. For the quality, honestly, North Korean craftsmanship is not bad. They are meticulous when they want to be. And there is a huge potential if you can sell those goods globally at market price. You'll have to deal with power outages. And watch out for those surprise mass rallies. Sorry, sir, half your workforce is mobilized and gone this week. They've been bussed to the capital to applaud the Supreme Leader's new policy. Don't worry, they'll be back, somewhat more indoctrinated than before. Remember that trillions in mineral reserve? This is a big opportunity. North Korea is often described as a gold mine of resources. The mountains are rich in coal, anthracite, iron ore, magnesite, zinc, copper, and, critically, rare earth elements, which are vital for high-tech gadgets. China dominates the rare earth market, but North Korea has a lot of untapped resources, a tempting prospect for any mining company. Some adventurous souls have tried mining ventures. The idea is to sign a concession with the government to extract gold or rare earth from a particular site. Bring in equipment and know-how, use North Korean labor plus some of your supervisors, and split the output with the state. Sounds straightforward? Consider this. A Chinese investor from Dandong reportedly plowed $4.5 million into developing a mine for rare metals in the Kimdom. It was promising. They struck veins of valuable minerals. Time to cash in, right? Nope. The moment the North Korean authorities realized just how valuable it was, they abruptly declared the area a military security zone. So, thanks for finding these gold mines, we'll take them from you. They booted the investor out with zero compensation. The poor guy returned to China with nothing but an expensive lesson in geopolitical risk. You do the hard work, they change the rules. Finding something valuable in North Korea is like feeding a baby tiger. Cute at first, until it grows big and eats you alive. But let's be optimistic for a second. If one could secure a stable agreement, mining could be insanely profitable. Coal mining deals were active for years, with Chinese companies trucking out coal by the ton until sanctions banned it. Graphite, used in lithium batteries, is another resource North Korea has in spades and has exported in the past. And those rare earths, if you could legally extract them, there's a global market hungry to buy for all our smartphones and GPU chips. So an investor can't help but salivate. But remember, you might need a personal guarantee from the Supreme Leader Kim Jong-un himself that you won't be expropriated. And even that might expire the minute he has a bad day.
In order to overcome its dire power shortages, North Korea may have offered China concessions for the mining of its rare earths in exchange for the building of a solar power plant. That's according to the homepage of the China.
If big, long-term projects are your style, North Korea's need for energy and infrastructure is colossal. We're talking power plants, roads, railroads, ports, basically building an economy from the ground up. In an opening up scenario, foreign firms could invest in fixing the decrepit electric grid or upgrading rail lines. Perhaps someday you can further connect them properly to China and South Korea's high-speed networks. There were even plans from the dreamy days of 2018 of connecting North Korea's railways south to Seoul and north to Russia as part of a grand Eurasian transit network. Oil and gas exploration is another pie in the sky. North Korea's coasts might have untapped offshore oil and gas reserves. A few daring entities from the UK and elsewhere did sign contracts in the 90s to explore offshore, but nothing much came of it since the data was scant. Still, imagine being the first to strike oil off the Korean peninsula's east coast. You'd be the wildcat driller of the Hermit Kimdom. The big catch? Capital and time horizons. You'd need to pour in big money up front and trust the regime to honor decades-long agreements. Remember, this is a regime that can't go a year without a policy U-turn. It's like signing a 30-year lease with a landlord who has an arsonist record. Still, some optimists have drawn up proposals and floated them in business conferences. If you have attended some of those occasional North Korea investment forums, you would know that these meetings usually attracts lots of attention, but very little actual investing.
There is now a growing trade in tourism from the Netherlands to North Korea. So the North Korean government is now inviting Dutch students to go to Pyongyang to give Dutch language training to the North Korean tour guides.
Can you believe it, comrade? There isn't a stock market in Pyongyang. Imagine the daily Dear Leader Index going up or down based on missile launches. Wouldn't that be fun? And you can't exactly buy North Korean government bonds. Well, actually, you can, but only those defaulted ones from decades ago as a pure gamble. There's a niche group of speculators who have collected old North Korean debt who bought for cents on the dollar, hoping that if the regime ever normalizes and pays up. But you know the result. Also, believe it or not, North Korea issued some kind of investment certificates domestically in the early 2000s and tried things like corporate bonds for entities like Air Koryo. All of those flopped. But as an investor, you can be creative. Perhaps buy into a South Korean fund that will pour money into the North once reunification happens. So the finance market here is more like a waiting game. You place bets now in the hope of a political change. Some South Korean conglomerates in the 1990s and 2000s quietly bought up stakes in real estate or facilities in the north for projects in Kaesong, essentially as options on the future. Those bets have been in limbo or entirely lost. But if you're patient and have money to potentially burn, you could invest in a North Korea Opportunities Fund. Just be aware you might be the butt of investor jokes at cocktail parties for years, until the one day it really pays off after the potential collapse of the Kim dynasty. Investing in North Korea is not just a financial endeavor, it's an exciting adventure and a bloodthirsty gamble. As we conclude this very useful guide, you should take some tips home. North Korea is a land of contradictions, enormous potential on paper, enormous pitfalls in reality. It's the place where you could theoretically strike it rich because no one else is there, but also the place where countless others have lost fortunes and sometimes freedom trying. It's the ultimate high-risk, high-reward scenario. Well, high reward is largely hypothetical, but high risk is virtually guaranteed. In North Korea, the only certainty is uncertainty. If you're an individual or business with an itch for the extraordinary, North Korea will certainly scratch that itch, possibly with barbed wire. You'll experience things few others do, negotiating under portraits of Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il, hearing factory workers break into a patriotic song at lunchtime, and seeing firsthand a country that time forgot. As an adventure, it's unparalleled. You'll have tales to tell that make Silicon Valley boardroom dramas look like kindergarten story hour. But as an investment, one must ask, is it worth it? That, dear viewers, only you can answer based on your risk appetite, moral compass, and perhaps how much you enjoy living on the edge. Some investors genuinely believe that by engaging North Korea, they are paving the way for positive change and positioning themselves for a future boom if the country opens. That could happen. Regimes do change, and those on the ground floor could indeed reap rewards. It's happened in places like Vietnam and Myanmar to an extent. Could Pyongyang be next? Maybe. Someday. So, investing in North Korea might be best summed up as, how to become a millionaire in North Korea? Start as a billionaire. You'll likely lose quite a bit in the learning process. It's a bit like the old joke, I spent a month in North Korea one night. And if after all this you decide, nah, I'll invest elsewhere, that's okay too. Not every mountain must be climbed, especially if it's strewn with landmines. If you decided to go forward with your bold plan, comrade, please proceed with caution, a suitcase of cash, a big smile, and a big heart. As they say in Pyongyang, Huai Ting, which means, you can do it, and good luck. You're definitely going to need it.